Welcome to This Week in Habsland. I'm Jordan, he's Brian. We're here to continue our off-season discussion of the Montreal Canadiens. Last time we were here, we completed our two-part episode where we wrapped up the season. Now it is time, Brian, finally. You know, the Barbarians have been at the door for months about this next topic, but we've been holding off and trying to talk about the season during the season. And even as the season ended, we said, hey, hold on, let's not start doing prognostication about the offseason just yet. Let's hold off. We cannot hold off any longer. So what we're doing today is our offseason preview, where we're going to look at primarily all non-draft specific movements. Not necessarily like avoid like trades that include players on draft day, but the picks themselves, I think. That's kind of excluded. We'll do that in next week's episode. What we want to do today is kind of all the other roster moves, everything else that's going on around it. So Brian, to set the scene, and then I'll throw it to you. So we all remember where we are with the Montreal Canadiens and their cap and then their situation. Estimated to have about $6.1 million in cap space. Now, the mega caveat on that, of course, that includes carry price. So if you throw that all together, we get up to about $16.7 or $16.6 million. The cap is expected to be $95.5 million. Again, that doesn't super matter with the Canadiens because they're likely to go into off-season LTIR. If you are confused by what off-season LTIR is, so are we. So let's just pretend they have about $17 million in space and leave it at that. We can go into it, but it's very boring. UFAs coming up this year: Christian Dvorak, Yoel Armia, Michael Pezzetta, retired David Savard. RFAs: Jakob Dobes, Emil Heineman, Sean Farrell, Jaden Struble. A few guys extension eligible. We'll obviously get into Lane Hutson. Presuming 3 to 4 open roster spaces, assuming most of the RFAs come back. Okay. That's setting the scene, Brian. You tell me now. This is probably the easiest alley-oop I'm going to throw you all year. What is the Montreal Canadiens' biggest need heading into the offseason?
Habs' biggest need has to be first-line center. Oh, wait, no. What year is it? No, it's second-line center now, Jordan.
Okay.
Second-line center. And I will say, just right off the bat, how big jerks are Montreal Canadiens fans for wanting a first-line center, a scoring first-line center, just like Nick Suzuki for 20 years, close to 30 years. And then the second he clinches it and is like, no, I definitely am a first-line center, everybody's like, okay, we need a second-line center. We need one so bad. This is the most important thing. So obviously that's the answer. Second-line center. Yeah. Nothing's even remotely close. Nothing's in the stratosphere of that. That would be the most important thing for the Canadiens. The thing that, if acquired in the offseason or early next season, whatever it is, would give them the best chance of going further in next year's playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So what we've done, what we've prepared here, and I sent this list to you, Brian, the other day. We have a list of 16 centers. We really tried to do the most exhaustive search for an available-ish, and the ish is doing a lot of heavy lifting with some of these guys. Yeah. Centers that could conceivably be second-line centers, and they're also conceivably doing some hard lifting there as well. Of note, Brian, and this was not done intentionally, but it might seem like I did. Of the 16 centers, 15 of them are what, Brian?
Left-handed centers.
Completely accidental.
Sure, I believe you, definitely.
I was going through it and I was like, oh, this guy, oh, he's also a lefty. Okay, cool. Oh, what about, oh, yeah, another lefty. And it just turned into a massive pattern, with the exception of one guy who I really don't think is available, but whatever.
Which that matters for those of you who don't know, because you haven't listened to the podcast before, because we say it every single week, but the Montreal Canadiens have Nick Suzuki, Owen Beck, and Kapanen coming up, Jake Evans.
Kirby Dach.
Even our future star, Kirby Dach, can't forget about Dach. Future star, hopefully, in Michael Hage. These are all righties. Mm-hmm. And so the only guy who's even a pseudo center at the moment is Alex Newhook.
Yeah. One thing I do want to mention, and this is an article that's actually pretty old now, is there was an analysis on does it actually matter strong side versus weak side faceoffs? And it did turn out that lefties have a higher winning percentage when they're on their strong side compared to righties. So if you have an overabundance of righties, you're actually not that affected by strong side, weak side. It's more the lefties that are affected by strong side versus weak side.
Which is fascinating.
Yeah. Now it goes into a lot more detail. Part of that, of course, is because almost 2/3 of the NHL centers are lefties. So
right.
There's some noise in those numbers, but I just thought that was interesting as something we've talked about over and over again.
Yeah.
It's maybe it's overblown, maybe it's not. I think you still want the versatility, especially in one of your top 3 centers, regardless.
Yeah, no question.
Okay, here's the list, Brian. I'm going to read it out. This is not an alphabetical order. It just happens to be the order it's in my sheet. And then we can kind of go in any which direction you want. Here they are. They're not all UFAs. It's a mixture of UFAs, a couple RFAs, and some guys with not too many years on their contracts, others with quite a few. Sam Bennett, Mikael Granlund, John Tavares, Matt Duchene, Brock Nelson, Marco Rossi, Mason McTavish, Ryan McLeod, Dylan Larkin, Bo Horvat, Nazem Kadri, Pavel Zacha, Barrett Hayton, Anton Lundell, and of course, Sidney Crosby. I left out Matthew Barzal. He's the one righty. Okay, I'm not saying all these guys are available. Obviously not. There's definitely no move clauses in at least a third of these players.
Sure.
Of the ones that are signed, like Larkin, Crosby, Barzal. Like there's stuff that's there. It's restricting a lot of it. But those are the names that I think have come up naturally, have people interested. Where did you want to start, Brian, in terms of this interview search for what the Canadiens want in terms of a top six center?
There's two names that I've heard the most. Sidney Crosby, obviously, which we've talked about a ton. We would love it. And we can almost leave it at that because it hinges entirely on what Crosby wants to do. If he says he wants to come to Montreal, it could be in the cards. If he doesn't, then it's not. So what's the point sort of discussing it? It's as basic as that. The other name I'm hearing all of the time is Sam Bennett.
Okay, let's do Bennett.
Top of the list, obviously. Top of a lot of people's lists. You pointed him out way before any of the noise started, like, halfway through the season? I don't even remember when you said it. It was several months ago, Jordan. You brought him up. I was like, oh, yeah, interesting. He's having an okay regular season, I suppose. And then, as good players do in the playoffs, he wakes up big time and is just an absolutely crucial part of that really good Florida Panthers team. So obviously he's at the top of the list here, and I didn't ask you, Jordan, you listed these in some particular order that I couldn't figure out. I mean, you said the UFAs first, then the RFAs, then the guys under contract, but what put Bennett at number one for you?
So I think it's just been, part of it was just in terms of the ordering of the list. It is I separated by UFAs, RFAs, and then length of contract. He is the best center available from the UFAs. I'm not saying he's going to be the best bang for your buck, but of the guys that is available,
currently best center.
Sure, yes, of course.
Mason McTavish could become a monster.
But McTavish obviously has that unfortunate R in front of the FA that makes it a bit more complicated.
Yes, of course.
So in terms of Bennett, let's do that. The interesting piece here, and this extends to other arms of this discussion, is the Panthers have $19 million in cap space. They are unfortunately back in the Stanley Cup final. Bennett is unrestricted. Aaron Ekblad, who we've also talked about in the past, is unrestricted. Brad Marchand is unrestricted. $19 million. They need a goalie. They have a couple other roster spots to fill out as well.
Yeah.
I don't know how you figure all of that out. And the name I've heard a couple people mention, just in like, hey, how can we squeeze him out? And it was funny listening to, I think all of us listened to Steve Dangle in the past couple weeks, just randomly.
Yeah, for no reason.
No apparent reason. And he was calling Anton Lundell Baby Barkov. And I actually thought, I'm like,
oh, okay.
Like Diet Barkov would probably be more accurate.
Yeah, sure.
I think some people have kind of identified, like, well, if they want to keep those three guys, Marchand, Ekblad, Bennett, I know I'm steering us away from Bennett, but just in terms of the exercise.
Yeah.
If you want to keep those three guys and you look at who has no move clauses on the team, you quickly come to the point where Anton Lundell is the highest paid guy who does not have any type of trade restrictions. Now, you'd be psychotic to trade him.
Yeah, exactly. I was just about to say he would get you a ridiculous return.
So, all of that to say,
unreal deal, amazing player who's 23 years old.
All of that to say, just like doing the math.
Yeah.
Lundell's not going anywhere, which means to me, Bennett and by extension, Ekblad too, depending how you look at it. Like Ekblad's probably going to get 7 or 8. Bennett, 8 to 9.
So here's the thing about 8 to 9. He will get that. I wouldn't give him that because he's also going to want 7, 8 years. 7, 8 from the Panthers or 7 from UFA if he goes to another team. I'm not giving a guy of his age, like 29. Yeah, that's great for the next 2, 3, 4, maybe even years, the way he plays. Year 7, that contract is much more rough.
So
I think.
I do think it's important for us to contextualize these contracts because there's someone I want to bring up whose name I've already mentioned that I am really interested in the Montreal Canadiens pursuing, who we will say the same thing. Boy, when he's 35, 36, That's a lot of money to be paying him. We have to remember the salary cap is now going to be $95 million. In 2 seasons, it's going to be estimated to be about 110, 112.
Right.
Where's it going to be in year 5 and year 6 of that contract? You know,
a heck of a lot higher for sure.
And
that's a good point.
There are mechanisms in how you structure a contract that you can kind of leave yourself with a door to escape from. If you avoid signing bonuses, and that's something I want to bring up with a couple guys. If you avoid signing bonuses cannot be bought out. They are guaranteed.
Yeah.
So if in year 7 of your contract, you're $8 million AAV, you get paid $2 million base and $6 million signing bonus, it's basically useless to cut that guy and buy him out.
Yeah.
So there are ways to manipulate it a bit. So I just want to couch it all, it's a guy going to UFA who's a center who's been on one of the best teams in hockey the past couple of years, prominent role on Team Canada. He's getting 8 to 9.
Yeah.
And I recognize, is that too much? Yeah, obviously.
Of course.
But that's just one of the options, right?
And you're obviously taking him for his playoff performance. Like if you were to look just at his totals, like not forgetting about even the nitty-gritty of advanced analytics, 25 goals, 26 assists for 51 points, and that's in almost a full season, 76 games. Mm-hmm. That's not worth 8-9. You crazy? But then look at his playoff totals, and it's a completely different story. And the way that he plays in the playoffs. And now, obviously, a big caveat here is that the Florida Panthers in general, I think you could drop any solid, similar player in that role, and they would do just as well because the system the Panthers plays, it's just so darn good and effective in the playoffs. So, there's that, too, that he's benefiting from. But there's also no doubt in my mind that Bennett is a big part of what makes their identity work so well. You know, so in terms of a playoff performer, that's what you're paying for with Sam Bennett. You might have to be happy with 45 to 55 points in the regular season for him to then score half of that in the playoffs, which would be very impressive.
There was a report from a NHL analyst whose name we refuse to mention on this podcast, or at least I do, that said there's a team out there that's willing to offer Bennett $10 million.
I mean, enjoy, have fun.
Okay, so you're out. If you get a call, you're Kent Hughes, you get a call July 1, Sam Bennett's agent says, hey, Sam's really interested. You come to us, 7 years, $8.5 million. What do you say?
Look, 8.5 is much more palatable than 10. 10 is a slam the door, no thank you. 8.5 is a starting point. I think between 7 and 8, I'm having that conversation. Anything above 8, I'm like, this guy's going to make more than Captain Nick.
Right.
And there is that soft cap within the Montreal Canadiens that who knows how much longer it's going to exist with the cap increasing, with the fact that it's been several years for Nick Suzuki, with the fact that Lane Hutson is going to be signing soon. And
we're going to get to that one, yeah.
You know, we'll save that. But that soft cap that exists of no player can make more than Nick, that might go away soon. Do you want the first guy to do it to be Sam Bennett, who's going to be never as effective as Nick Suzuki? Playoffs or not, I would take Nick Suzuki over Sam Bennett. If Florida tomorrow was told, hey, you could just have Nick Suzuki. There's this weird caveat in the rules that we weren't aware of, this gray area. You can have Nick Suzuki for Sam Bennett. I think they'd be silly not to.
Yeah. Well, that's not the argument, though. The argument is you need someone behind Nick. So I think I agree with your point. I think the price is going to get too high for Bennett. And I think it's also going to be, I think Florida's in a tough spot. But I think his bidding starts at $8 million at this point. And if it's too much. Let's move on. Let's look somewhere else.
Yeah.
Maybe stay with the UFAs for a bit.
Sure.
The other guys are Granlund, Tavares, Duchesne, Nelson, at least of the ones within a certain caliber.
So can I sum it up?
Yeah.
So old.
Okay. So how about this?
Yes.
I think Tavares would be a great fit. But he's not leaving the Leafs, so let's get out of it. Shut up. I know you're about to say something, but stop it. Okay. What about Matt Duchesne? What if you go to Matt Duchesne? So he's going to be 34 start of the next season.
Yeah.
You go to, now again, Duchesne wanting to leave the situation he's in right now. I don't know. I don't have Dallas's cap sheet in front of me. I don't remember if they're as strapped as
the least amount of cap space of any NHL team.
So there's your opportunity. If you go to Duchesne and say 4 years at $8 million a year.
4 is long for a 34-year-old. $8 million is a lot for a 37, 38-year-old, but you're buying those first two. These players interest me as a stopgap before you're real second line center who's like 25 years old comes into the fold. I have no idea who that guy is. Maybe it's Michael Hage.
Okay. So, but like just generally, and again, this is part of free agency, right? You are overpaying, but it's because you are getting a guy
No question.
for
Yeah.
free. I am not giving up draft capital. I am not
Yes.
giving up prospects. I am not giving up a roster player. What I am giving up is an additional bit of cap space. A fair, I'm using air quotes,
Yeah.
Matt Duchene contract is maybe $6 million a year for that same amount of term.
Yeah, that
Extra
stomach,
two,
but
that's what you're trading away. That is the trade in this fake scenario. Okay, so UFAs are not for you. I think there's something interesting with Duchene there. Granlund, love his play, not the fit. Nelson, again, these guys are going to be looking for 3 and 4 years. And if the Canadians aren't going to overpay a little bit, they're going to go to places, they're going to stay. Or they're going to go to places that are competitive.
Not only that, but Hughes has already said that he's disinterested in swaying from the plan that they had set forth. They're going status quo with grooming the younger guys, and if they need somebody to fill the void, I really don't think he didn't say this explicitly in any of the interviews that I've seen. Maybe you can correct me, but he hasn't said explicitly that he would avoid signing somebody for longer than like a year or two, but I think that that's what's between the lines here. Like if you really read into it. Because you're going to stop the younger guys from coming up to get a guy like Brock Nelson? I don't think so. RFAs in the mid-20s? Can we get into those?
Okay, so I have these on the list. I don't think any of them are likely, but I've seen them mentioned enough to have the briefest discussion.
Great.
I don't have any interest in Marco Rossi.
Too small?
He's fantastic to watch. As a neutral, he's way too small.
Yeah, okay.
This team is already small enough, and I get it. It's not all about having guys who are 6'2" and 6'4". I mean, look at what the second line ended up doing this year, right? But you already have Cole Caulfield. You already have Lane Hutson. Suzuki, we love him. He is a first-line center. He is not overly physical. He's barely 6 feet. So Rossi, as a neutral, I will continue to enjoy you from afar, but just not on the Habs. McTavish and McLeod. Who do you want to tackle?
So McTavish first, because I think it's a quick discussion. McLeod, we could have a real talk about because Buffalo is who would have guessed it? A dumpster fire for yet another year. Players want to leave. Management doesn't know what to do. Who would have guessed it? Okay. Anaheim saying goodbye to McTavish. What type of trade for Gretzky package are you giving them? Like, he's not Gretzky, let's be clear, but who else in their organization has the potential that he does? Oh, well, actually, Karlsson. But who other than Karlsson has the potential that he does to make a giant impact?
Beckett Seneca.
Oh, Beckett Seneca.
So again, like this is the devil's advocate here, where you hear this argument every year of like, boy, how many of those guys? You mean talented forwards? Like,
yeah, we'll take all of them. Thank you.
You never say stop.
You know what? Here's the proof of it. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins right now for the Oilers, not playing a pivotal quote unquote role as like McDavid or Draisaitl do.
Mm-hmm.
But he's contributing in a monstrous way. So, yeah, you take all the guys that you can who are skilled forwards. So, yeah, McTavish, I think that's an absolute no-go unless you're giving up the farm and some current very good players. Ryan McLeod, 26-year-old RFA from the aforementioned dumpster fire in Buffalo. This one could be possible. This one actually could be possible.
So, again, reports. I feel like this report's like a scheduled tweet. That there's people unhappy in Buffalo. Big shock when you don't make the playoffs for 14 straight years. Sabres playoff drought is as old as we were, Brian, when we were going into the 9th grade.
Wow.
That's a long time. So here's the deal with Ryan McLeod. I think he's fantastic. The argument would be like, how much more can you get out of him? And would you be potentially overpaying both in terms of trade and payment? I know he's RFA, but regardless, you're giving something up for a guy that, like, how confident are you in him would you be in being like, okay, yeah, 2-seat, we're good. He's great. Look, kills penalties.
He is great.
He has offensive flair. He's broken out a little bit the last 2 seasons.
Yeah. Look, I'm not confident yet, but it wouldn't take much. It wouldn't take much to sway me into that direction to be confident in McLeod to be a second line center. And in terms of the cost, to trade, I think it would cost a lot. I don't know that the contract would be massive, to be honest with you. I think he would be so thrilled to get the heck out of Buffalo that he would almost sign anything. And I'm not talking like league minimum, but I'm talking like he wouldn't necessarily push for that extra $1 to $2 million that that some guys would. He might just be like, you know what, I'm joining this organization. And I do think that Hughes and Gorton are able to have those conversations with players, especially Hughes being an ex-agent. Like, I'm not too worried about the contract. That's why this one interests me so much. I don't know what the actual number would be, but it's not a number that would be frightening.
Is a number like 6?
That's what I'm thinking. In the 6s?
6.5, yeah.
He's probably asking for upwards of 7, 8, and he doesn't deserve it. He's never had a season that would be even close to that. I mean, his best season was this past season, 20 goals, 33 assists. You know,
it's an interesting name that I think, and there's a few other Buffalo guys we have, at least one more. No, one or two more. Just one more Buffalo guy on the list. I didn't put Owen Power, even though that's shown up as like, hey, what if they do? He's a lefty, and I don't think you're moving the number 1 pick from 5 years ago.
No. He's
a winger, but I put JJ Peterka on the list. I know we haven't gone to like the non-centers yet, but Peterka was there too. That's the one. Look, if you can get them both, sure. We'll trade half a draft for you. But
yeah, they'd want more than that even though. But JJ Peterka being traded by the Sabres, pinch me, am I dreaming? Have we gone back in time? Are they trading him to Vegas?
Oh my God. No.
Like
no.
That to me was when Eichel, just to be clear, like Eichel being traded, that was when Buffalo was like, all right, we're just giving up. And to trade Peterka now would be similar to that. They have Thompson in his prime, and they're going to trade the guy who's likely going to be able to pair up with him and be like just
look, to be
that's
clear,
why I say dumpster fire.
Yeah, to be clear, we're only having this conversation because it is the dumpster fire that is a Buffalo. In terms of safest guys, it goes Dahlin 1, Thompson 2. I think Peterka's 3.
Yeah,
you're nuts. It's in the Mason McTavish zone. Like, what are you doing thinking about trading him? Not that they are going to trade him, but I'm just saying, like,
right.
That's your top 3, and I'm not touching those guys of the confirmed NHLers. I know there's still some young guys that are breaking in, and Zach Benson, and we love him, but like those are the top 3 that like I don't touch, which is why maybe, I don't know, Ryan McLeod could be of interest. The only question is how confident are you in him him being a second line center? You know, there's other guys on this list too that we're going to get into the guys who have contracts left, but like, what is the ceiling? I still ask that question with him.
On McLeod, we talked price, but maybe term is a more apt discussion because whether it's 6 million or 7 or 5, like if it's for 2-3 years bridge,
no bridge.
You don't think he's taking it?
It's not even that. It's what the Canadiens would have to give up, plus the fact that he has 1 year left as an RFA. That contract, from his standpoint, from the Canadian standpoint, I think would have to be no less than 5 years. Like 6x6 would make.
Then that's a big gamble.
That's the point.
That's a decent gamble. Yeah. Okay.
So in terms of the UFAs, you hated them all. That's good. In terms of the RFAs, you liked them all, but
I just don't think they're likely. Yeah, exactly.
This is the process. This is what we're going through. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go back. I know I quickly drifted to Peterka, and I think I mentioned Ekblad quickly. Let's go back to the centers and those who are under contract. And this is where I think it can get really interesting, even though I don't think any of these guys are likely to be traded. But that's not the point.
You sound like Marc Bergevin right now. You sound like Marc Bergevin. Center's not likely to be traded.
Well, listen, and that actually is a fantastic segue into if he had gotten the job over Mathieu Darche, then I think Matthew Barzal, Bo Horvat would be great candidates to go after. So the centers under contract that I mentioned earlier, it's Larkin, Horvat, Kadri, Crosby, Zacha, Hayton, Lindell, and Barzal. Yeah. So let's do the Islander guys.
Okay.
Barzal, you're nutso-butso if you're trading him. But that's why Bergevin was this close to having the job and being the GM in the Islanders. I don't think that's a guy you move. Contract's a bit high, but, injured last season. Year before that, point per game, 80 games. So he's the one righty, which maybe swings things, but I also, it's talent. It's talented, top 6 center. I don't fret at that. Darche, I don't think would want to trade Barzal. Now, the other guy, unless you have thoughts on Barzal, the other guy is Horvat, and that is, for me, the number 1 guy to go after in this entire exercise.
Really?
Not saying he's the best player. He's not. There are better players on this list, obviously. In terms of what you would have to pay, in terms of quality of player, in terms of potential availability, I think Bo Horvat is the would be my main target. You know, like I don't think Bennett would want to come to Montreal, and the Canadiens would not want to pay what he wants to pay. Tavares won't leave. Duchesne, Nelson, I think their sights are probably set elsewhere unless Canadiens really overpay. The RFAs, love them, but like realistically, RFAs. There's one RFA I want to bring up later that I think has a chance of getting Edmonton, where you throw something at them and they can't do anything. But it's not McTavish, it's not McLeod.
No.
You always have to go one level lower is what we're learning on the RFAs. In terms of the guys that are signed, I don't think Larkin would want to leave Detroit. Like, I'd be floored if Larkin wanted to leave Detroit.
Yeah.
Kadri, he's great. It's 4 years left on the deal. $7 million a year. Not too bad, but he's getting older. I won't go through all the guys, but Horvat's the one guy who's 30 years old, starting next season, still being very productive, has some power play time. Like, that's something we have to weigh into here, but he could potentially eat up some of the power play time that is vacated by Christian Dvorak leaving. But he would certainly hold, I think, good standing in terms of the second line center role. And really, like, the part of this whole exercise is who the hell is centering Ivan Demidov?
Yeah, and that's crucial.
Like, I don't know how much we can talk price in terms of trade here, but I think the contract's fine. It's 6 years at $8.5 million. The last 2 years of the contract, there's no signing bonus. So if you need to eat that and cut it out and buy it out, it's not too restrictive in those last 2 years, if you get to that. But also the cap might be $125 million. So an $8.5 million contract for a guy at that point who might be your third line center is not the end of the world. Tell me why I'm crazy.
I can't argue with or against a guy whose Corsi has been above 54% since he was 23 years old.
Wow.
Year to year, the thing that is most deterministic in terms of advanced analytics going into the playoffs, every single year it tracks the final few teams to make it, especially the last two, but the last four and even within the last eight, the vast majority, talking like upwards of 3/4 to like 80-90% depending what year, their Corsi is well above 50%. And this is a player who, even like through the ups and downs and mostly mediocres of the Islanders, has been well above 50% in terms of Corsi. And as you said, plays defensively quite responsibly, which, you know, factors into that, obviously. I think before you said power play, I think you meant to say penalty kill, like taking Dvorak's spot. Yeah. So that, and that's a huge benefit, or that would be a huge benefit to the Montreal Canadiens to have such an experienced and talented penalty killer join the fray, be the other guy with Jake Evans, like have two PK units with very good centers leading them. I really like the sound of that. The price tag is huge. So obviously it's tough, but the price tag in terms of a trade, you're dead on. They not that they're looking to get rid of him, the Darsh, which, by the way, side note, congratulations, Mathieu Darsh. That's it was only a matter of time until he got a job of this level. He's such a smart guy. 8.5 is expensive, but the price you would pay in the trade itself would not be expensive, because obviously Darsh is not looking to get rid of him so much as he would just accept a decent offer, I think, and allow them to maybe kickstart a retool. I don't know if rebuild's the right word, because they still have some great pieces there, but like, so retool at least.
That's the thing. I don't know if we have a good idea of what Darsh wants to do yet with the Islanders, which is why this is a big question mark. One thing I wanted to mention, because I would like to talk what the value would be in terms of what they'd have to trade to get Bo Horvat. I feel like some people have this in their head that everyone needs to be between the age of 20 and 25 right now, and that's the only guys they should be targeting. The reality is they're going to have guys who are older than that on this team. And it's actually kind of good. You need guys at different stages of their careers. It's, first of all, you're widening your pool of players that you can have, but also it's good to have players with different experiences and have guys a little bit older and more mature. You can't tell me Horvat's not going to come in and immediately command a presence, and that Demidov would love to play with him all of a sudden. Like, I think, look, it's everyone. If Bo Horvat was 25 years old, first of all, he would never become available.
Right.
So, not that he is available now again, and he's 30. Like, it's very hard to get a center. It's not impossible, as we've learned. In terms of what it would cost to get Horvat, you're certainly starting with the draft picks. Like, you're throwing in the extra first, the extra second, and then I'm not sure after that. Like, are you looking for... Hage is going to be the one guy that everyone, whenever the Canadiens come calling at this point, especially if it's for a center, Hage is going to be the one name that everyone has on the other side.
Of course.
And the Canadiens are going to have to make a decision there on, like, what player would be worth throwing Hage into a deal for.
I love that question because I'm looking at this list and I don't think I see a guy. Maybe I like Hage too much, but I think management likes Hage as much as I do. They were willing to trade up to get him, and they were thrilled to get him. So am I crazy to say that there's not a single name on this list of the ones we've gone through so far? Like, okay, Mason McTavish, obviously. Mm-hmm. That one you can put aside. That one I think would be worth it.
Barzal?
Barrett Hayton, who we haven't gotten to yet. Barzal, maybe. The $9.15 million cap hit is big, but he's 28. Yeah, maybe. Anton Lundell would be the other like big time gamble. Barrett Hayton, I said Crosby because he's Crosby, but like Hage would be a hard no for me. I would just counter and be like, hey, we got Beck and Kapanen and we could throw in other stuff. What do you say?
Yeah.
It doesn't move the needle nearly as much as Hage, but to me that's a non-starter.
Yeah, again, it'll depend on what Darsh wants to do, and maybe he has time on his side. You don't have to trade Bo Horvat. I'm just saying, of the guys that might be available, that would be the one that like Hughes calls up Darsh. Says, congrats on the job, man. Always knew you had it in you. By the way, can I get your second line center?
Right.
I don't know how
possibly Noah Dobson.
Okay, so let's round out the centers conversation because this is we haven't. I'll let you pick like maybe one or two more guys that we haven't gone through. Kadri, Crosby, Zacha, Hayton.
Hayton, I love.
Yeah,
Hayton, I love how he's making 2.65 right now. Well, it's not beyond me because he hadn't proven it yet, but I think he's very close to proving that he's worth much closer to Suzuki's deal, if not more. So Barrett Hayton is very interesting. I don't think Utah is interested in moving him.
So that's the thing. If I can stop you for a second, anytime we've talked about a player 26 or 25 or under, we end by saying, well, that team would be crazy to trade him. What nuts if they would trade this guy.
Yeah, they're not moving him.
We have to remember every time we talk about, boy, the Canadiens really should trade for a center. Yeah, I know. Everyone else is not trading their great 25 or 23-year-old center.
Exactly.
So unless you really, and even if you want to like bowl them over with a great package, they might be like, we're good. Don't worry. Like, we're fine. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. Hayton, I don't know where I saw Hayton's name, but I was like, oh, okay, let me throw that into the mix here. But you're not giving up. You're not gearing up Barrett Hayton. It's fireable offense if you're like, oh yeah, we traded Barrett Hayton for 2 first-round picks and Adam Engstrom.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Oh my God. Hell no. Especially, wasn't he drafted like silly high? Like he was like 4th or 5th or something like that when Arizona drafted him. So like they believed in him enough then to do that, and they're going to sign him to a great deal soon.
So here, let me ask you this.
No-go.
If you could rank among the centers I put on the board here, and maybe even if you want to go off the board, give me your top 3 in terms of most likely to be a Montreal Canadien in October.
Most likely. Oh my God, man.
Understanding that even most likely might only mean 7% chance.
Yeah, that might be my number 1 is 7%, and then the others will drop. I guess Sam Bennett.
Okay.
I guess. I want to say Crosby, but I don't think that's likely. Maybe. Oh, you know what? Actually, no. Number 1, Pavel Zacha.
Really?
Likeliness. Yes. Because Boston, what does Boston want to do right now? They want to lose. They want to tank year after year to get the future. We didn't discuss him yet.
Yeah. Is he good enough? That's kind of like for me in the Ryan McLeod zone of like, is he really good enough to be a second line center?
It's a gamble. It's a gamble, but it's a less expensive gamble because you're not paying him yet. He's got 2 more years at just under 5. So like you're paying him just under 5. Yeah, it's a decent amount of money, but like, no, I mean, the answer is no. He hasn't shown enough yet. I'm talking likelihood from the perspective of the opposition, the perspective of Boston. They want to move off of good players.
Yeah, they're in a tough spot. Anyways, so you had Bennett 1.
Let's look. I'll put Bennett 1. I'll put Zacha 2, and just because I really want it to happen, I'll put Crosby 3, even though it's crazy.
Okay, all right. I will put Brock Nelson 1. We didn't really talk about it, but I think him and Duchesne are kind of in the same zone. I'll put Nelson 1, Horvat 2.
Okay.
And give me Ryan McLeod 3.
Wow. Okay.
And we look forward to getting 0 for 6.
Yeah,
so,
of course.
Let's just the other free agents or available players that I kind of identified here. Most of them are free agents. Nikolai Ehlers, Will Cooley, JJ Peterka, Cody Ceci, Aaron Ekblad, Noah Dobson, Rasmus Anderson, Connor Murphy, Brock Besser, and Jonathan Marchessault. Again, this list is based a little bit on like what the rumors tend to say who might or may not be available. Certainly some of these guys are available literally because they are unrestricted free agents. Who caught your eye here?
Cooley caught my eye. I think he's got huge potential. Very good left winger, high skill. And the Rangers, I have no idea what's going on with the Rangers in terms of what direction they want to go in. They have to sign a bunch of dudes, and they're not going to be able to sign all of them. So that's why Cooley's interesting.
So this was the guy I was bringing up this is the Team U Edmonton. This is the St. Louis RFA.
Yeah, exactly.
Move.
Yes.
They have Keandre Miller and Will Cooley, restricted free agents. I'm not saying sign both of them. I'm just saying you're going to want to keep Keandre Miller, which means Cooley is susceptible to an offer sheet that's not $9.5 million that you lose a first and a third and a second and everything.
No.
So Cooley's the interesting one. That's the RFA I'd be shocked if he doesn't get an offer sheet from someone. If he wants to leave, of course.
Yeah.
But that's the guy.
What's fascinating about that is talking price in terms of the cost for the offer sheet, because what he's like, most likely Will Cooley's going to fall. There's two ranges that I'm looking at between 2.3 and 4.7, roughly, like I'm rounding. That's the second round pick. Yeah. He's going to make more than that.
Way more.
Yeah, you're right. Way more. Darn. No, it's the next two. It's between 4 and 7, and that one's probably not even likely, and then 7 and 9. And then 7 and 9, that's a first, a second, and a third.
Yeah, so the idea is like,
that's
can you go, and again, he needs to want to sign this contract, and you have to remember there's a stupid clause in these things where the AAV is, I believe it's just the first 5, or it's calculated over 5 years.
Yes.
So if you offer a 7-year deal, let's say it's 7 at $7 million. So you're like, hey, we're right under that number where it's only a first and a third. Okay, the Habs can live with losing a first and a third. But if it's over 7 years, that's $49 million. But the math does it over 5 years for some dumbass reason, which means the Canadiens would be in the the 2 first, likely in the 2 first, second, and third.
Yeah.
Whatever. They jump up 2 levels is my point. So there's some stupidity there. But if you do this in a way, also you can do the Kotkaniemi. You can just offer him 1 mega year at $9 million just to screw the Rangers out of a qualifying offer the following year.
Yeah. Well, I think you would have to, because you have to scare them away enough that it's not feasible. I know the Keandre Miller thing scares them away already because they'd rather sign him. They have forwards. They only have Adam Fox on D, basically.
Yeah.
I don't know their roster super well, so maybe I'm forgetting somebody, but like there's nobody else high level. So, yeah, that's a giant chunk of change. If it's 1 or 2 years, fair enough.
Okay, so that's Will Cooley. I think a name to monitor, even not for the Habs. Just I think generally speaking, he's gonna be an interesting name in free agency.
Yeah.
Let's go quickly now. Dobson and Anderson.
Great. Okay.
Let's save Noah Dobson for the end. We've talked about him a bit. Rasmus Anderson as a potential stopgap, but also maybe we just keep you along for a while, bud. 1 year left on the deal in Calgary, $4.5 million ish. Right-handed defenseman. Canadians need one of those, certainly. And that's why we've talked about Neil Pionk in the past before he extended. We've talked about Aaron Ekblad a couple times. You know, certainly the Canadians need a right-handed defenseman. They have Alex Carrier, who's definitely an NHLer, likely a second pairing right-handed defenseman. David Reinbacher, let's just continue the forward momentum. There needs to be a third guy, whether it's Logan Mailloux next year or not, I don't know. Why is Rasmus Anderson not the easy stopgap that you can also just re-sign in a flash if he likes it here and if you like him, and you have all season next year to figure it out? More Mailloux tape, more understanding of what he can do, and maybe Anderson is a more long-term fit.
To answer your question of why not him, I do not have an answer. It's Rasmus Anderson. You sent me your list as you were sort of going through it, and I took a look and I said Anderson. Yeah, he's of all these guys, I want him.
Yeah, he's it might be another under the radar one, because the other guy, Dobson, it's like, okay, if that's someone for some reason Matthew Darsh decides is available, the bidding war on Noah Dobson, will just be astronomical.
For sure. Yeah, no one's looking at this past season. They're all remembering 2 seasons ago.
Yeah.
With Dobson, he had an off year. Boo-hoo. It's not that bad. I think should they choose to go that route, Dobson's going to command a giant price, whereas the Flames would not get a hefty price for Rasmus Anderson. They would get something good, but it's not going to be Dobson level. So that's why that one interested me the most, because it's right in that sweet spot of a player that we could really use without them being one of those high-skilled, huge money guys and needing to give up everything. He just happens to be a really good player who could be in your top 4, and that's about it. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that.
His value would be very interesting if he was available, and also Calgary's prerogative might be to keep him to the trade deadline too.
Sure.
And that's a quality top 4 right-handed defenseman at the trade deadline will cost an arm and a leg, even if he's expiring and even if he's heading into unrestricted free agency. There's a lot of value with that. Okay, so that was kind of us doing our best to cover as much as we could. There's other names that I brought up that I don't think we need to go into, at least not today. We can revisit this maybe when we refine it and think more closely about what a trade package would be for Pavel Zacha or for Rasmus Andersson. But for now, I think, Brian, we can leave it, because I did want to spend a bit of time in this episode on what's in-house right now on the Canadiens. There's one huge thing to discuss, and that's Lane Hutson's contract extension. So broadly, we'll get into the UFAs, we'll get into the RFAs. By far and away the most interesting, I feel like we've said this almost every year, the most interesting in-house thing for the Canadiens is re-signing their young star, more accurately, extending their young star. 2 years ago, this was Cole Caulfield. Last year, this was Juraj Slafkovsky. This year, of course, it is the presumptive winner of the Calder Trophy in Lane Hutson. So what I took a look at kind of comparable contracts as a starting point for this, because I already know, you've already brought it up, the Suzuki cap of $7.875 million that the Canadiens have successfully had Juraj Slafkovsky stay under, and Cole Caulfield, probably more importantly, stay under. Here is it. I'm going to go in chronological order of the past 2 years of comparable deals. Now, I left out Rasmus Dahlin because he's a superhuman, and thankfully, Lane Hutson has not reached that level yet, although maybe he will. But for a rookie season, I think Dahlin's 8x11 is off the table. So, Jake Sanderson, 2 years ago, 8 years, $8.05 million per year. Owen Power, we brought him up earlier, 7 years, $8.35 million. Brock Faber, 8 years, 8.5, and then Moritz Seider, 7 years, 8.55. I don't know if you're tracking that at home. The AAV, so the average annual value, 8.05. This is all in chronological order. 8.05, 8.35, 8.5, 8.55. Clearly, the agents are saying, that's the bar now. My AA guy wants a little bit more. Just a bit more. I want to become the newest highly paid early 20s defenseman in the NHL. Sanderson at 805, Power at 835, Faber at 850, and then Seider at 855. Lane Hutson's agent is going to walk in and ask for what, Brian?
9. He's going to ask for Cale Makar money.
That's it. That's bang on the number they're going to ask for, and they're going to be okay settling for 8.75.
Yeah, I think you're dead on. That's exactly right. Which, side note on Makar, incredible that he's making 9. He signed that deal for the 21-22 season, $9 million a year. That's absolutely insane. But that's what Lane's going to ask for.
Mm-hmm. So did we just do the negotiation? So do we send this to Kent? 8 years, 8.75?
I mean, sure. Now, does Kent have the audacity to try and keep him under the Suzuki cap?
That's the question. And at what point does the Suzuki cap break? Because this is going to be the biggest test. We know Demidov is, technically he would be extension eligible next year. So this game continues every year because he burned that first year already. Yeah. But I think Hutson is going to be the guy that breaks it. Like, the Canadiens are going to come in and say, what, 7.5, 7.75, 7.874?
Yes, 7.874 on the nose. No, sorry, 7.874999. That's what they'll say. And he'll say, I want 9. And then, like you said, they'll settle on like high 8s. But just looking at it this way, for those of you who can't stomach somebody going over the Suzuki, if anybody were to be the first one to do it, wouldn't you want it to be Lane Hutson? Wouldn't you want it to be the Calder winner, record-breaking, incredible, best performer in the important games of the Montreal Canadiens playoffs, Lane Hutson? I would.
Yeah.
I think it's a no-brainer. Seriously, you keep this kid around. I do not know. This one is the most interesting. You said it before. Every year it's a signing. That's the most interesting part of the offseason that's in-house by far. This one especially, though. Like, I was not as fascinated by the Slafkovsky one. I was not even close to as fascinated by the Caulfield one because we sort of know what they do. And Lane Hutson, we've just scratched the surface with what he does, I think. And so that's why I don't actually think that 9 would even be crazy. Like, if they asked for 9.5, And we were like, whoa, let's go to 8. And they were like, no, we're not going below 9.
So you're hating on it. Like, the cap is rising in 2 years. I feel like I'm going to say this every week, basically. The cap is going to be at $112 million in 2 seasons. So an extra million on Lane Hutson, that's fine. 8 years is what's more important. We said this with Slav. The 8 years is more important than the number.
Get the entire term, of course.
So concede going from 7.8 million up to 8.75, 8.8, 9. I think that's probably the reasonable boundary. If you go north of 9, where Kent Hughes will be like, are you serious? Really? If you go if their opening is like 9.5 or 10, if it's the Dahlin contract. But the argument, of course, Dahlin was like, well, he had done a lot more. No offense to the Calder Trophy winner, but like Dahlin had done a heck of a lot more before he got that big contract.
So
you don't want to piss him off to the point where he's like, okay, fine, give me 3 years and 8 million at your number. That's where you would run the risk.
So that's what I wanted to ask you. That's the hypothetical I want to get into. What if, and it wouldn't even necessarily be about pissing him off, but what if he feels like, wow, I've really only just scratched the surface of what I'm capable of? Like, he starts seeing it from that perspective and goes, no, I do want a bridge because I think I can make 11 in 2 years or 3 years.
Yeah. So you're talking about the Austin Matthews approach, which look
100%.
It's worked very well for the chemistry of that team. So
clear. Yeah. That's how many rounds you want to win in like a decade too.
Yeah. Like, it's definitely not a factor that the guy who's supposedly your leaders always have 1 foot out the door when he's doing contract negotiations to position himself the best way to leave. Yes. I don't think that's never brought up. It's always, not to get a Leaf sidetrack, it's always Marner, which he does suck in the postseason, but maybe there's a different other stuff going on. And Tavares has slowed down and Willie is fine. But like, we never talk about how Matthews' leadership kind of trickles down and sets a culture for the team. Anyways, you don't want to get Matthews'd is what my point is.
You want to get Suzuki'd.
Look, they're going to, I think we laid out what the negotiation is going to be. I think it's going to be fast. Habs will say, we love you. We want to sign you to the same contract as Nick. I don't even think they're going to joke about that. They're like, literally, here is Nick's contract. Here. 8 years.
You know what? Yep.
This is the number we set, everyone, we buy into it. We've bought into you. That's the contract. And they'll say, look, we love that. We believe Lane Hutson has done more. We want $9 million a year. And then they're going to spend 3 hours hashing it out and figuring out signing bonuses and no moves. And that's where the concessions are, right? So we're $1.2 million apart. Okay, give us a signing bonus here. Give me a no move or no trade for these years. And now I will concede to 8.6 or 8.7.
Some Norris victory contingent money.
If that's what you want to do, add all the weird contingencies you want. But
yeah, just keep them. That's all that matters, man.
8 years. Okay, cool. Fully in agreement there. Now, the best of the rest. Because let's be honest, we've gone down a few notches here.
Oof, yeah, and then some. I don't even know who you're going to mention, but it's several notches down.
So there's a couple different directions we can go in. I don't think we need to spend particularly too long on it. The 3 UFAs are Christian Dvorak, Yoel Armia, Michael Pezzetta. Pezzetta, it's been nice to know you. Tip of the cap. Heck of a job scraping your way to the NHL.
Everything.
See you around. Armia, I think, is very much in the same boat. Dvorak is the one guy that I think you give a call to on July 1st and just say, hey. And maybe this is the point of like, you're going to sit out the big center market because it's too expensive. And if you can't get anything on draft night, you say, okay, Christian, we'll want to bring you back for 2 years at, $3 million a year. And that's your contingency. That he is weirdly somehow, just because he's a center. And it's weirdly, you still kind of need that as long as you can't trust Kirby Dach.
So 2 things on Dvorak. First, I hate the idea of making a deal based on necessity, of needing to fill a gap. I hate that. Second thing, at what point did his season turn, or let me put it this way, at what point did he turn his season around and start playing better hockey, Jordan, this past year? Like,
was it after the trade deadline?
Probably.
I
mean, if we want to be generous, we can even say it's about 25 games, like slightly before the trade deadline. Sure. I don't know what it is exactly, but for argument's sake, let's say half the season he played really well. Is there such thing as a half a year contract? Because I want him to play that well as if he's in the last half of a contract year. That's what I'm interested in with Christian Dvorak.
You and I have disagreed in person over this. He's getting at least $6 million of guaranteed money.
great. Get it elsewhere.
Okay.
Get it from somewhere else.
So according to you, the Canadiens are signing no centers, letting go of their one UFA, and we're icing Owen Beck and Oliver Kapanen down the middle with Jake Evans and Nick Suzuki.
Totally fine.
Okay.
So, and everybody who's a Habs fan seems to be terrified of the idea of taking a step back in order to get good in 2-3 years. And I am not adverse to that. I really don't hate that idea at all.
This I agree with completely. I'm okay with that situation, by the way.
Like if they don't make the playoffs next year or don't get further than they did this year, that's not a failure.
Right. I agree. Look, I mean, Suzuki's going to be better. Hudson's going to be better.
Yeah.
The guys are going to get better. Reinbacher's going to be in the NHL. The team's going to naturally just get better. But I agree, like, they are going to be on my only worry is Demidov. If you're just sticking Demidov with a rando at center, like, that's where I'm like,
Yeah, but would you rather him be with Dvorak or with Kapanen? I would put him with Kapanen because at least Kapanen has some type of offensive mind. He can make plays. Like, he's not a brilliant playmaker by any stretch of the imagination, but Dvorak is a dump and chase.
I know.
Master. Like, I don't see the benefit.
Okay.
But I've been harping on him for years. So obviously, take a sip.
Rapid fire here. RFAs, Dobesh, Heineman, Farrell, Struble. Are they all back?
Dobesh, yes. Heineman, yes. Farrell, yes. Good playoffs. And Struble, I think, yes. I don't see why not.
So importantly, Sean Farrell, no longer waiver exempt. So that's an NHL spot, which is that's a very interesting one. Suddenly. Now, that might be fodder for trades.
Yeah.
It might be someone you just ship off at the draft for a 2027 second round pick and just say, we're just kicking a can down the road. I don't know, but I don't know if he's done enough to earn a NHL spot from the guys that are already on the team. You have your first line. You have Newhook, Demidov, Doc, Laine, the two vets in Galley and Anderson and Evans. So we're already at 10.
Yeah.
And anyways, so
I want Kapanen there. I think Roy needs another shot. We're definitely forgetting some guys. So yeah,
tight. It's getting tight. So we'll see with Sean Farrell. That's an interesting one. We don't think we have to speculate on the contracts for Heineman and Dobesh. I think Heineman's will be bigger. Like that's the guy that, like, can you squeeze a 3-year 2.1 per year or something like that? 2.2.
I think it's in his best interest actually to do something like that rather than trying to get a little more money for more time. Because he's only going to get better, and he'll get a bigger slice of the pie next year. He's not going to be a fourth liner.
That's another guy. There are 11 guys that are
exactly
icing.
Heineman,
Sorry, I forgot Heineman, of course, the guy have started pitching for a top 6
role. So yeah, you know what? Sorry, Farrell. That's it. That might be it, man.
He's an easy guy for trade candidate. Okay, the discussion we've all been waiting for, the Mike Matheson extension.
What? Why is he on this list? This is way too premature. Like, I love Mike Matheson. We've said it before. We love him. But talking about an extension for a left-handed, middle-aged to older than that guy, peu importe d'où il vient, même si de Montréal, even if he's from here, it's not.
So what are we thinking?
That's not the conversation.
5 years at 7 per year?
Oh, easily. Yeah, easily. Maybe longer.
The rule has been we don't talk about trading Mike Matheson to the final year of his contract. I think that we are a couple weeks away. Maybe we don't have to wait to July 1. But I think it's okay to allow him into those hypotheticals. We'll do some hypothetical trades in the next couple weeks. I think we are now allowed to open that door.
And only because Lane Hutson is unbelievable and Gouli still looks great. And that's your left side.
Yeah, and if his stick went the other way, we would not be joking about the 5-year
Oh my
extension.
God! If Mike Matheson, if he was a right-hand shot, maybe he could learn.
I'm sure he could. I'm sure 6 weeks. That's easy,
Switch
right?
the hands around.
Yeah.
Switch the hands around.
Come on,
it's
man.
Easy.
Anything else? Patrik Laine's extension eligible. We're about an hour into recording. We have not really talked Patrik Laine and how he fits on the team. And that might be a topic for another episode in a few weeks. But
yeah, long-term, I don't know that I see a fit other than being a third and probably even fourth line player who just happens to be the best power play guy on your team. A specialist. That's what I see Patrik Laine as. And if that's his role, he's not worth what he'd be asking for, and someone else would give it to him. So I think maybe they'll have talks, but I don't see an extension happening this early, certainly. Maybe midway through the year they'll even just start the discussions, but I don't see it. I don't see it long term at all.
I agree. the real discussion is what trade value does he have?
Look, to a team with a dwindling power play who needs it, there's some value.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that the contract is almost done, like you could retain half and somebody could get their new best power play scorer for whatever, $4.35 million.
Yeah, like
it could be palatable.
I think there's probably like a 1 in 3 chance he's not on the team come October. And if that is the case, it'll be one of the most interesting tenures as a Montreal Canadien I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
From
absolutely.
A guy that we were like, holy, what did we get? What did we have to give up to get him? To like the awful injury in the preseason, to that standing ovation he gets on opening night. And then coming back, game 1, we talked about it last episode, right? One of the potential goals of the year as the Patrik Laine.
Yeah.
And then as the temperature turned up, he cooled off and he became more, at least maybe the rose-colored glasses came off and it was more and more of a liability. And now there's a genuine question of like, is he blocking the way for, I mean, specifically Demidov, but there's other guys too. You could say Slavkovsky, if Slav is the guy that they decide to bump off of power play 1 in the new year, or sorry, in the new season, if Demidov's there and Laine's still there, like there's a genuine question of like, hey, is he actually making it worse? Despite all the incredible talent he has and how much he just lifted that power play up. If it does come to an end this season, it's one of the more fascinating 12-month rides.
Look, if he was half as effective offensively at 5-on-5, I'm not even asking him to be great defensively or even in transition. Like Demidov's going to be great in transition. Newhook's decent. If he could at least be okay to decent in transition and like pretty good offensively, we wouldn't be having this debate.
I agree.
It would be keep Laine around. And it doesn't matter if he bumps someone off power play 1 because he is the guy on the power play. But his 5-on-5 play doesn't warrant that. So I think that's about it. And obviously, we may have only seen 60, 70, 80%. I don't know exactly the number of what he can do because, he had injury troubles. And then in the playoffs, the hand, like injury woes, it really sucks because it also makes it so that you can't really even ascertain what you have in a player, and I think that's really the case with Laine here, is that we don't know fully what we have at 5-on-5 even, and I've ragged on him all year for his 5-on-5 play, and at times I felt bad about it because like, you know what, he did come back from an injury, and it was an injury that would absolutely impact your mobility, and that's the thing that I'm seeing a lack of. So anyway, fascinating.
And how much does getting a better second line center impact that type of decision making?
Yeah, that's a crucial point too, because if you pick up a guy that can awake him at 5-on-5, you're not only getting a great second line center, but you're waking up an incredible scorer, a sniper. So yeah, that's a really good point too.
And at that point, guys kind of start to fall naturally into place. If you have now, you can put Alex Newhook on a third line. I'm not sure what that means about Kirby Dach. If you bring in that second line center, Demidov and Laine as the wingers, you have Galley and Anderson along with, let's just say, Alex Newhook centering them.
Yeah, where does Dach go?
I don't know where Kirby Dach goes, but
so it's becoming pretty clear that one top 9 player, and perhaps they just see Gallagher and Anderson moving down and they'll give the kids a chance offensively, but I don't see it. But I think ultimately one top 9 player, because there are 10, if you pick up a center, will have to go. Mm-hmm. Which kind of makes sense. I think if somebody would be giving up a player who's good enough to be a second-line center in the Montreal Canadiens, they would want one roster piece back to replace that player. They don't have to be as good, but if they got a player back, like a Josh Anderson, let's say, I don't know who it would be, but you're definitely right. There's one too many guys there.
There is, yeah, because even if the idea is that Evans becomes the third-line center and centers Galley and Anderson, you still have the surplus guy of Dach/Newhook.
Yeah, in your
where
top,
they
six.
going? You know, it's
yeah,
and then it's like, well, then you just make the fourth line a kid line where it is Kapanen, Heineman, and Beck or Roy or Tuck or Florian Jacki for that matter. Like,
yeah, hell yeah, I'd love to see that.
You can definitely flip the fourth line around to just be like, they're just gonna burn you with speed and forecheck the hell out of you.
Yeah,
and then the third line is the vet line that will have it some nights, not have it other nights. And then it's the second. We were coming back to where we started. Figuring out the second line center trickles down so much in these decisions. The Hutson one's obviously on an island by itself, but the second line center trickles down so much for the forwards and then the team and their outlook in general. that we did the exercise. We spent 40 plus minutes on it, and it's really hard. And there's certainly names we like, but I don't know if they're at the prices we like. So
Yeah.
I think we'll leave it at there for now, Brian. When we come back next week, we're going to talk about the draft. We're going to now focus on the other part of the offseason and different spot than where we've been the last 3 years. Now the Canadiens are picking in the middle of the first round. So we'll take a look at that, really look at, I think we'll still go over the top guys, but really start to focus on the guys more expected to be in the Habs range, and maybe more towards the middle of late June, we'll start focusing again on those second line center candidates and start crafting some trades, because we didn't get too far into it. Really, I think today we're just assessing who's available and who we might want to target, and then we can come back around to that discussion in a few weeks. So with that, you can follow us on social media at HabsLandPod on Blue Sky and TikTok. If you like what you heard, please leave a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Until next Monday, go Habs.